What's up, everybody? My name's Indy, and that gentleman right next to me is Mr. Jay Powell from Powell Group Consulting. And welcome to another amazing episode of Indie Game Business, sponsored by Tripwire Presents. And we are talking about game contests for marketing and funding with Lee Perez. Let's get to it.
Hey, Lee, welcome, Dan. I love the energy.
30 seconds.
I'm going to delete it.
It was on loop. And I was like, what is happening?
Oh my God. Anyway, yes, I love the energy. You get the day off when Pontus is here and we roll for 2 hours, and now you're all excited to be back. So, Lee, welcome to the show. Lee and I have known each other for a while. First time getting him on here. And so we're going to start where we always start. Tell us how you originally got into the industry and walk us through your ins and outs to this point.
So 20 years ago, I opened up a game center in Gainesville, Florida, and called Gamers Asylum for the few people that might remember it. We had 35 computers and 6 TV stations, and on the weekends we'd do Counter-Strike tournaments and Smash Brothers tournaments. And we actually got the attention of Blizzard, and we ran some Warcraft 3. Before World of Warcraft, there was a strategy game based on that IP. And we ran tournaments for that and Intel. And back then you would just get like a video card or a motherboard as your prize instead of a $500,000 check from Epic. So it was different times in esports, but it was very fun and learned a lot. And one of my former employees, she went to become an animator at a local indie startup there. And she told me, hey, it's a mess. They're looking for a producer. You might want to throw your name in the hat. And that's how it kind of went from esports to actually working on the games themselves.
So where did you, I'm leading into this because we were just talking beforehand about why don't you give us a high level of your track through the industry with your side quests along the way up to where you are with Meddling Kids?
Absolutely. No, that's a really good way to phrase it. Side quests. It's interesting what you learn along the way and how it's applicable to the next challenge or adventure, so to speak. So I started in esports, and then I worked at an indie and got to see, how the madness happens as far as being a small group of about 20 people. We were one of the first licensees of the Unreal 3 engine at the time. So learning a lot of new tech and experiencing that. Then our publisher at the time was looking to expand, and they offered me a job. So then I moved from Florida to Texas to work for a company called South Peak Games at the time. And that's where I worked on a lot of different games, and that was a really good experience working on Xbox 360 and on the Wii and PlayStation 3, learning what first party is, submitting games, and getting all those through approval process, dealing with developers in different time zones, and then they kind of imploded. They were trying to be a fun indie publisher, but made some missteps and made some bad choices. And so I decided to take a break. And I guess I thought that I had played so much Cooking Mama that I could just start my own food truck. And I saw it was the opening year of the Great Food Truck Race, and decided I can do that. I'm second to video games. I like eating, so why not make grilled cheese? And I opened up a grilled cheese food truck.
Oh, wait, that was the theme of the whole thing?
Yeah, it was called Lee's Grilled Cheese, just because it rhymes and it makes sense and it's not too complicated. You don't have to go to culinary school for grilled cheese. So that's what we did.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love a good grilled cheese.
Yeah.
So before we get into all the contests, give us an idea. Tell us a little bit about the game that you're working on now. So we've got a little bit of a frame of reference into the contests and the festivals and all of that side of what we're going to talk about here.
So because I left the industry, so I was working at an indie, then working at a publisher, and then I left. I took this sabbatical of doing food trucks, and then actually went to work at Lockheed, and I worked on fighter jets, which is technology, but it's not video games. And then I missed it and I wanted to get back. And then when I wanted to get back, everyone's like, well, you've been gone for a long time. We're now on PS4. You worked on PS3. Not like the world has changed completely, but when I started in video games, the majority of the games were shipped in a box and going to Walmart and Target and GameStop. And now the majority of the games are sold online and through Steam. So I kind of was having a problem getting back in. So I thought, okay, well, I'll prove to them that I can make a game still. I'll start up my own studio. And then I decided to get some third-party validation, because when you talk to publishers or you're talking to investors, they're like, oh, what's the last game you shipped? And in my resume, it had been a while. It had been a good 8+ years since I had shipped a game. So they decided, okay, we'll start submitting to contests and festivals and start winning some awards. And that way we have someone else saying, hey, these guys are pretty good. Even if you're a finalist or ideally you win first place, then, you can kind of use that as your merit badge, sash, and get some street cred. And that was the genesis of that. And I thought I'd share that here on Indie Game Business.
All right. So starting from the beginning, what are the various types of contests and competitions and festivals that everybody needs to be aware of?
So there's some different examples. There's different ones out there. So, and some of them will just give you a prize, so that at least you'll have a tag that you can put either on your game Steam page or on the beginning of your pitch deck when you're sending it to a publisher. But we have things like festivals. So you have like the Independent Games Festival, IGF. That was a big prestigious one. It's, has a connection with the Game Developers Conference. So that one wins you a lot of, who's who street cred as far as the industry is concerned. And then you have different festivals that are more specific. So like we recently got selected for a Latin Games Festival, since I'm from Puerto Rico and I'm of Hispanic descent. So there's festivals like the Brazil Big Festival. So there's festivals that are more themed by either on a country or a genre or a specific, indie section that you can participate in. Then there's also pitch contest. So there's like DevCom, there's hashtag Pitch a Game. Pocket Gamer has their subsection called Big Indie Pitch. And those are more about you just pitching your game. So you can use that to kind of get the word out on your game, and launch it and kind of get initial feedback. So it's more of a, really practicing what you're going to be talking to publishers about. Then there's live events. Excuse me. So like I'm here in Fort Worth, Texas, and DreamHack Dallas was here over the summer back in June. So we had a submission process for being an indie and getting a free booth if you got selected. So, but that's a live event. So you have to show up with your computer gear and banners and talk to people face to face. So that's great. We also did PAX. PAX also has a certain indie submission process that you can submit and get either a joint booth with other indies or get your own mini booth at a greatly reduced rate or free, depending on the year and what they're doing. So live events are also a type of contest that you can submit to. Excuse me. And then there's game jams, and game jams are more kind of centered as far as making during that limited time, making a game, and that helps you get more street cred for you as an individual or your studio. So it might not be the game you're looking to make, but at least it gets you some recognition out there to use. So those are all the different types of events that you can kind of participate. And like I said, they can be earning you prize money or a physical, not dollar amounts, but other things. Like you might want credit for different services or computer equipment. All the way up to just getting selected for a category like best multiplayer game or best story.
All right, so when you're looking at all of these, obviously with a bunch of different options there, are there pros and cons to one versus the other? Basically we're going to look at like why you should submit in general. And I know that sounds kind of obvious in the sense of, because you might win something, but there's more to it than that. So are there situations where you should be submitting to one type versus another type? Or is it one of those where you're just like, all right, hell with it, we're going to like submit to everybody?
That's kind of a personal preference, but we decided that we were going to submit to everything. And just because, there's a pre-qualifier with a lot of them, they'll select, a top X number. So for example, one of the contests we did early on was for Fiverr. They had a contest, make a best game contest. And if you won, the grand prize was $25,000 in credit to use on the Fiverr website. So the way we looked at it is that we were able to then hire and outsource a lot of musicians for music or animators or clipped art, anything you could use for outsourcing. So not only did that give us that money, but it also gave us experience on dealing with freelancers, which a lot of indies tend to use, when they're small. So, and then, but for that one, they had over 5,000 submissions, because it was a big, cash dollar prize. Whereas there's some other smaller ones, so like the local event for DreamHack Dallas, unless you were able to, fly down here if you're not local and have the money to buy or rent the equipment as far as TVs and desktops and have a build ready in time, that has to also line up, having your submission content ready as far as whether it's a demo or just a concept pitch document. Those kind of, change, the dates and the timeline of what you're going to submit to. But it doesn't cost you. The majority of these events don't cost or have an entry fee. Some do. But if it's free, there's really no excuse. Just submit to it and see what happens, because you learn so much along the way.
So how do you go? I mean, a lot of these things we know about, or maybe we don't, but we should, like the IGF and the various other ones that are in the, what I'll say is like the core of the industry. How do you go about finding a game dev contest that was on Fiverr? Because that's a completely new one to me.
Yeah, they only did that in 2020, which is crazy. We actually just got back from PAX East, and that's where we had heard about it. I don't think they did a great job of necessarily, promoting it, but they did get over 5,000 submissions. So I think it just got a lot of people within the Fiverr community kind of knew about it. Yeah,
it's interesting because I've worked with some of these competitions, like as a judge or as a prereq person or whatever, and especially the ones that come in from outside the industry, like the IGF and like Indie Prize that they used to run with Casual Connect and all this. People know about those, the big indie pitch. People know about those, and if they don't, the companies running them know how to market it and get it in the hands and get it in front of the people. The competitions that we've worked with that come in from outside the area don't, and they'll try to do traditional PR and marketing around it, and then they're calling us going, why do we only have X number of submissions? And I'm like, because you can't, it's like everything else in our industry. You can't take that model from doing whatever the hell else it is and shove it into games and think it's going to work. So a lot of it, it's a big risk reward thing. If you go out and find some of these hidden contests, now obviously not if there's like 5,000 people applying to it, that's going to wreck it. But a lot of these contests, they don't get a lot of submissions. You got a much better chance of winning something because you just don't have a lot of competition.
I mean, some contests we actually found out through your Discord page. You guys do post on some, kind of industry events. So that's a great tool, and I would encourage people to follow that. But, Google is going to be your primary source. You're going to want to search for indie game contest or indie game festival and see what comes up. And sometimes it'll find you a link to something in a different language. So you might find the Japanese link to Tokyo Game Show, but then you click on it, and then on there, it'll let you change. They'll have a preset for, change to English, and then it'll retranslate everything on the page. And then you'll find out that, for example, they were taking submissions for indies and if you got selected, you got a free booth. Now you have to fly to Japan, and hopefully you have a passport, and you'll have to bring your equipment and such. But you find a lot of different things like that. And sometimes it's through different governments. A lot of the European countries have some very generous grant programs, and some of them are exclusive to local European-based developers, but some have international slots. So you can be a US-based or Latin America-based studio and still apply to a contest or festival that's happening in Europe or in Asia or anywhere.
And it's good. There is a lot of repetition in what they're going to ask for. So it's one of those things, and we always tell folks, don't ever throw anything away.
Yeah.
Be data hoarders. So it's like when you do one of these applications, keep that info somewhere. So when the next application comes up and you have to explain why you chose to be an indie developer, you don't have to make that up on the fly again. You've already got it and you can pull for it. the Tokyo Game Show is interesting though, because they have been trying to push indie games in Japan for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't think it's still catching on as much as they would like it to, but I know Tokyo Game Show has been trying to pull some of that in for a long time. So when you get selected for one of these and you get a free booth, so to speak. Now that's not free because all they're basically giving you is floor space and the shell of a booth. How much on average, and take out the flight part, because I mean flights are going to, obviously if you're flying to Japan versus you're flying to Boston, there's going to be a big difference there. But the show itself, how much can an indie team expect to spend on setup and banners and all of that wonderful stuff?
We've kind of tried to keep our budget between 5 to 10,000. You know, when you factor in, you know, the computer equipment and your eating out there, you know, the only event that we did that we had to really fly out for was PAX East in 2020. And luckily, my partner and lead programmer on Trickshot, Eric Apple, he's in Boston, so he was already there. He was the local guy in that scenario, whereas I was coming in from Texas. And then it kind of flip-flopped when we did DreamHack Dallas. I was the local guy, and he was the one flying in. But I shipped everything. I had already the computer equipment, so I actually mailed it to his house, and he brought it in his car and drove it over. And then same thing here. Luckily I have a van, so I didn't take as many trips, and then I could just drive over to the equipment, you know, set it all up, and then he flew in just the day before. You know, unless you're, you know, bringing a stack of sandwiches from home, yeah, you're going to be eating out on the show floor. Yeah. They usually have, you know, rules where they no outside drinks. You know, even a bottle of water, you're going to have to buy it there, for example. Sometimes there are free energy drinks, and that does help.
Well, there usually are, but you have to go outside into the middle of the crosswalk to find them. Where somebody was handing out fresh apples at Gamescom as we were all walking in. I was like, well, that's a nice change of pace. That's I don't remember who it was, so I'm sure it defeated the purpose of the sticker they had on the side of it. I was just like, hey, free apple. So how do the different submission processes look? I mean, are they all forms? Are there certain things that you need to like have ready day one that you know you're going to get asked? How do you manage that part of it?
Most are forms. And to go back to what you were saying about earlier, there is going to be a lot of repetition. So there's a lot of content you're going to be reusing, as far as they'll have usually like in 255 characters, you know, what's your game about? Basically, it's that first little block on your Steam page, you know, in 3 or 4 sentences. What's your pitch? What's your game? And then they'll ask you, you know, in a bigger section, okay, you know, in several paragraphs, tell us about what your game is. And then there's screenshots, and then they'll ask for video, or if you, depending if the event is also more business centric, as far as having like publishers involved, then they might have a spot for submitting a pitch deck or a PowerPoint presentation. But what I like to do is I create a Word doc and I copy and paste every question that they have on their form, because there's nothing worse than spending half an hour typing all that stuff out and then your internet's out and you've lost it all. And I can say that from experience. So create a Word doc that has the name of the event, has the dates, and start filling it out like if you were filling it out on their website. And that way you can, you get spell check. You want to make sure everything's, you know, spelled correctly. And then you can kind of go back to it a few times and just rethink, you know, are these the best 255 characters to describe our game? Are these the best screenshots? And you kind of just go through everything and really refine it. And I think that's really helpful when you're starting to pitch to publishers, because each one of these contests and festivals and jams that you're participating make you really think about your game. Because as you're putting you might be pacing over from the previous event, go, was this the best one? Or sometimes they'll let you type in more, type in less, and you have to kind of rethink everything that you've been selling about your game.
Especially when you mentioned that first one's like 255 characters, and it's like, this is where you practice all this stuff on the pitch game things, and it's almost like another level of marketing nerd that you have to get into, where you're starting to do A/B testing. And so did this tweet pitch to get more reaction than this one? And then, because that is it. It's like, and I've said on these things as a judge. And so you've got to catch that judge's eye, whoever's doing the pre-qualification. You've got to catch their eye just like you catch a developer or a publisher or a consumer or whatever else. And so it is good. Kellex says it's like forcing you to do a press kit. And yeah, it is. The stuff that you put into a press kit is exactly what you should, have ready to go with it. So
yeah, the cool twist on the live events is that there you get to try it face to face with gamers, with if it's an esport kind of centric event, you get to pitch it to competitive players, and you see their face, so you see what keywords or descriptors you're using really triggers them and makes them go, yeah, I'll stop. Keep in mind, if you're in a live event and there's a bunch of other contests and tournaments and musicians there, if you're able to pull them off to try your game, whatever you just said worked. So keep notes, either on your phone or a notebook. And you can just, pre-tell people, hey, I'm going to be watching you play. Do you mind if I watch you and take notes? And listen to them. They'll be talking to their friend or buddy that's right next to them, like, oh, check this weapon out. Or they might find a bug that you didn't know about. You also can document that. There's a lot of, besides refining your pitch, you're also refining your game. You start seeing other people really kick the tires on your game and decide, why did you put the grapple gun this way? Why are the power-ups this way? Why is the health bar on the HUD this way? And sometimes they give you some great suggestions. Sometimes they just, trash everything you've done, and you might be a little sore at the end of the day. But it's all, I think, good criticism, and it makes you think in a different way. Because you've been working on your game for so long, usually, that you sometimes are kind of immune to things and forget that you made a decision 8 months ago for a particular reason. And now, since you are not there to explain it to them why you got to that point, they might not have that same perspective on it.
There was an indie team at Gamescom, and I saw on Twitter that they had posted that there was a kid running around because, at Gamescom, for those of you who've never been, there's the business section where people like me are hiding most 99% of the time. And then there's the consumer section. And they had a kid come up to them and said, I want to play your game again. I want to find all the bugs. And the guy's like, are you saying that to all the developers? He's like, yeah, but yours is the easiest. And I was like, oh, and they were, they laughed it off, but it is good because you're right. It's like when you've been in the trenches on a game for 6, 9, 12, 15 months, whatever it is, you're just perceiving that things are normal and you don't get that outside feedback. But yeah, and it also goes along with never ask a kid a question that you don't want a real answer to, because you're going to get it. So when you're at these live events, how do you triage the feedback? Because one, it's hard for people to look there right in your face and go, I don't like your game. The UI blows. But then if you start getting a whole lot of feedback that, maybe cancels one another out, how do you basically bring all that knowledge back and condense it into something actionable?
You look for repeat comments, and you have to give them permission to be brutal with you. So tell them, hey, because some people are shy. No, no one wants to tell grandma that her cookies aren't great, right? So you got to tell them, hey, be honest with us. This is, we've been spending months, years, our personal money. I work overtime to fund this game on the side. This is my passion. Tell me, what I need to fix. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like, and tell me what you wish was different. If you can capture a lot of those three, you'll get a lot of information, and you'll be taking notes. If you're working with a couple other developers, in the game, you can have them also, split up in notes, and then you compare your notes. And if all three or two of you or multiple people told you, hey, it was hard for me to tell how many lives I had left, or I couldn't find where my score was, or the tutorial told me this, but I understood it this way. Then, okay, the tutorial, is fine for us, but not fine for someone off the street that's never played the game or never heard of the game. So, and that's how you start matching what needs to be done. And sometimes you have to go, you know what, we chose the J key, or the G key on the keyboard for this reason, and people really wish it was the left shift key or the X button versus the Y button. Let's go ahead and change that. And you just have to, either choose to follow the advice or not, but you have to be open to it.
So the other big part, especially in live, is one, yes, you've got to have that thick skin. You have to be able to deal with it when somebody tells you something sucks. But the other is you need to bring the most outgoing, energetic person that you have on the team, or even if they're not on the team that because a lot of it, there's so many games going around that you're going to need somebody to actually almost like grab people and say, hey, come over and check this out. And if you're one of the more introverted people in the industry, which a lot of us are, you don't want to be doing that, and you're just going to be standing by your booth hoping somebody comes by. So, I mean, are you usually the one there, or do you have somebody else that you bring in to wrangle up the players?
So I'm usually the used car salesman, carny attention getter of the group for sure. That's just more my personality style. But the very first time our game programmer Eric went to an event, he's very shy and calm, not to fit him into any particular stereotype. But bit by bit, especially as the days go by, if it's like a 3-day event, by Sunday he's doing cartwheels and backflips and talking to people. And just keep in mind, you're most likely never going to meet these people again. I mean, unless it's a publisher or a Monster Energy drink rep or something like that. These are just gamers that happen to be there on that particular day. So don't be worried about what you're going to say. Just try different things out. And sometimes it's feedback on if you have a TV and you have a trailer, you might notice that bring a couple different edits of the trailer. And you might see that one trailer pulls people in more than the other. Little things like that, it really lets you test everything out, how you're pitching your game, what features there are. If someone tells you, hey, is the game going to have this particular feature? And let's say you never thought about it. You can say, yeah, we're thinking about that. That's a very good point. We're developing that. And they don't know that you might not be, but you can go back to it later if it's a good idea, and see kind of develop your sales pitch based on the reactions that you're getting in every part of it.
All right. So how do the contests and the competitions differ? Are they similar to like the festivals, like a Steam Next Fest or something along those lines? What's the correlation between the two of them? Where do
It depends what stage your game is in, right? So like if you have never talked about it, like this is the first time you're announcing it, you can kind of use the event or the contest or the festival as your announcement. So when we went to PAX 2020, that was the first time we announced, Trick Shot, and we're going to combine, a shooter with skateboarding. And it's funny because that was our first live event, and then COVID hit, and then there were no live events until literally just recently, back in June when we did DreamHack. So there was almost this exactly 2-year period where all the events we were doing were online, which limits to a certain degree, the people you can reach and the kind of feedback that you get, and that sort of thing. So at DreamHack Dallas, the day before, Sony had their event, and that's when they announced Roller Drone, which is also a skate shooter. Now theirs is only roller skates. There's no skateboards. Ours has hoverboards and hover skates. There's a single player only. Ours is multiplayer. So you just analyze, like, great minds think alike. So there's going to be something similar, or if you're in an indie corral, like where there's multiple indie studios, by dumb luck, there might be another studio 3 booths down that has 2/3 of what your game is, or a similar storyline. And you're just going to have to dissect what makes ours different, what makes ours better, and really lean into those features that your game has when talking about it.
All right, so we've got a question coming in from Discord. It's a little tangential. So is Trick Shot on Steam yet? Are you doing wish list for that?
So yes. So if you go to Steam right now and type in Trick Shot, we actually have our demo live, special for this event. It is a prototype demo. We don't have any dedicated servers, but you can either host your own game locally, and that has bots that you can play with, or you can make a server and you can send an invite to your friend on your Steam friend list. It has a hub world, so you can hang out there and then just launch a match with bots. Or if you have a total of 8 friends, then you can all play against each other. But make sure whoever has the better computer is the host.
Yeah. So, do you have any insight then on wish list goal numbers if you want to get featured on the popular and upcoming?
So see, that's a good question, because since get in cahoots with Steam. So for example, we got picked for the Latinx Games Festival, and they have a relationship with Steam, and they're going to be, during those 3 days of that event, it's both a live and an online event, they're going to be also getting a special banner off the main page, and you click on that, and all the games that they selected that are participating in that festival are getting special highlights. So that's going to all give you traction, extra traction, that you might not have gotten. So even if your wish list numbers and other certain triggers, and you've had other guests here before that talk about, is it 5,000, is it 10,000? What's the magic number that gives you the love from Steam? When the festival gets highlighted on Steam, then it gives you extra attention regardless of what the number is that you have. And then obviously the goal is, get as many people to add to your wish list while you're there.
And you brought up a good point with the Latinx and gaming. It's better to get into one of these, I'll say smaller groups, because when Next Fest launches, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of games on there. You're just going to get lost in the woods unless you have outside marketing help along the line. But if you have gone into one of these contests and competitions that's closely allied with, and they're going to have a Steam page, you're not competing against nearly as many people as you would be at one of the bigger festivals.
Yeah. And whatever weird subcategory you think exists out there, probably is one. There's some festivals where your team has to be 3 people or less. There's some festivals where it's tied to a specific genre, like it has to be a multiplayer game, or it has to be a single player narrative, or it has to be pixel art and not 3D rendered. So yeah, if you can find that your game fits into one of these smaller niches, then yeah, you're going to have less competition. And then when it goes and piggybacks off of an event like Steam, then you'll be able to get more attention that way.
All right. So another one coming in from the Discord. From the ground up, what are your first priorities to gather a crowd for your community? I mean, how do you start building that from day one?
It's tough. You try to see it, what you like in games and what you like about your game, and try to see if you really have to just analyze your competition, either games that are close or directly competing against your game, and what do those people like. So our inspiration for our game was, I was a big fan of Jet Set Radio. Our programmer Eric, he's a big fan of Tony Hawk. So that brought in, both the skateboarding and the roller skating side of things. And then you look at what those people like as far as, music or videos on YouTube or reviews or art, and try to post on there, either following on hashtags that these groups follow on Twitter, or different events. You can also work with streamers. There's streamers that review certain games, either in a particular genre or feature, multiplayer games, for example, or skating games in our case. And we just reached out to them like, hey, I saw this particular episode, really liked your review on this game. We're working on something similar. I would love if to send you a Steam code and get some feedback from you, and not even ask them to stream it. Just get some feedback, get some free advice, and you'd be surprised what people will come back and say. I spent 30 minutes and I tried it out. Here you go. By the way, do you mind if I stream it? And then you go, of course, that'd be great. And then you can get some free publicity that way too. But at the very least, you want to follow what other similar games are doing. And what things those people are attracted to. And that's probably your best place to start.
Managing this whole process between getting the feedback, submitting to curators, submitting to contests, finding contests, is that something that you can feasibly do while you're also trying to be the designer or the programmer? Is it something that you need to get outside help on?
It depends on how big your team is. So you obviously need we're a small 2-person team, and we've had at certain points, a third or a few freelancers, especially when we won for example, the contest for Fiverr, and we had money to hire freelancers, right? So I've always been more of the producer hat / marketing person / game director, because I did that at a small indie publisher, small indie studio. So could I have done that in programming? Maybe, but programming is not my thing. So, and when we were making a build for a show, you kind of need to leave the team, working on features or QA or programming to focus on that, to meet the timeline. Because there's nothing worse than showing up with a buggy build, or, you might have some bugs, but you don't want to be constantly, every 3 minutes or trying to go through the tutorial and something breaks. That doesn't make it look good. So it depends on how many people are in your team and who likes to do this. You're writing a lot of English, finding good words and adjectives and descriptors. So if you like writing and doing copyright, then that's maybe the person who you should have fill out the form. If you like video editing, maybe you make the trailer that is part of that submission process. Or if you're really good at taking screenshots, or for example, my programmer is the better, he captures the better footage, but I edit it. So, there's kind of collaboration there amongst your team as far as different pieces to that puzzle for the submission process.
Well, I mean, with so many of these out there, where do you draw the line, especially if you're having to branch off dev builds or demo builds to get for certain competitions? Where do you draw that line between we're going to use the resources that we have to polish a demo for PAX versus we still have to keep going and doing core development on the game itself?
That's a proverbial decision all developers have to decide on. What's more important? You could use figure that out. So if we're doing this live event and we're spending $10,000 to fly everyone to PAX East or PAX West, okay, that's probably the build that needs to get focused, and you work backwards from that date. All right, what needs to happen by what date in order to meet that? And that might mean that you are submitting to less publishers. Maybe you have to take a little bit of a break in order to get that. But usually once you have that build ready for that show, maybe that's when you re-engage publishers you've been talking to or haven't talked to in a while and say, hey, just want to let you know we're going to be at this show. We're going to have a new build. Here's some Steam codes for it, or we're going to make it live on that, during these days of the event. We'd love for you to check it out. So sometimes those kind of can come in and out and line up, but you do need to decide, what shows are more important. Maybe it's a show that's got a great relationship with Steam and they're going to get a lot more attention, even though it's an online event. Maybe that's the more important one to focus your resources on. Sometimes it's just a flat out date. Maybe there's 6 months worth of work that needs to be done regardless. And you look at, all right, what shows are going to be in that kind of 6 month window from now, and focus on that. You could have a great show, but if your game's not ready to be shown or to have something playable, then you might just have to skip that event.
You can definitely hurt yourself more than help yourself if you come in because I mean, you brought up an excellent point. When you start submitting to publishers, there's going to be 2/3 of them that you don't hear back from. And that may be because they just flat out didn't like it, or they got lost for time, or it wasn't far enough along. They shouldn't have time to get back to you. But whenever you're going to these live events, that is a fantastic time to just ping the publisher and go, hey, we're going to be there, new build, stop by if you have a chance, and we can talk and you can see the latest on the game. But yeah, if you go and it's buggy as hell, that ain't gonna be good. That's not gonna help.
And people change and companies get acquired. So you might have talked to the Sega rep and thought things were going well, and then they go radio silent, and it's because now they work at Epic. Or maybe you were talking to a particular publisher and they now got absorbed by another bigger publisher. So people move around, and you just need to be diligent to follow up. And even if you're not hearing back from them, if you have an update that's ready, you have all your assets, in a Google Drive, or you have a dev branch that they can use off of Steam, which is more ideal if you use Steam. And once you make a Steam page, using that to submit, and then you can send them specific builds. You can make multiple branches. We've made branches that are specific to one publisher. They had a particular feature that we're interested in, and we prototyped that feature and we send it to them, and that way they could check it out. But we still have our root build out there for us to get just general feedback from playtesters and fans who are following us on Discord and such.
That could be extremely time intensive if you're building one-off builds for publishers that want to see a particular feature.
Yeah,
I'm going to assume it's a really good publisher. That's the
yeah, it was. So and you have to evaluate that, and we've had publishers that told us, oh, this is we really want you to kind of dumb this down, that we think this is way too complicated. And we did. We dumbed it down all the way down to the way they want it, and we took it to DreamHack Dallas. And the first amount of feedback that we got from people like, this is really basic. Is there more depth? And luckily, we still had the older build that had that depth and complexity to it. And we just like, hold on, give me a second. Let me load up this other build. Try it out. What do you think? So we were able to kind of rapidly get feedback on 2 different versions of this particular gameplay mechanic for our trick system, and kind of then went back to the publisher and said, hey, look, we made it for you. We know you checked it out, but we actually got this type of feedback from people live at this esport event. So this game might not be necessarily for everyone, but as far as for people who like competitive multiplayer online games, this seems what they want. So we were right. You don't brag too much that you were right, but it helps validate your hunch.
You're not right. You're simply validating thought processes and hypotheses. That's because otherwise you will get in a little bit of trouble. So you go to the contest, you go to the festivals, you win, you get awards, you get recognition. How do you post contest maximize the results of that? How do you best put to use what you may have won at that event?
So once you've won, a lot of the contests will send you artwork, or once you've been selected as a finalist, for example. So they might send some graphics with, based on a screenshot that you provided, and they'll have their official logo. It'll have the PAX logo or Latinx Games logo, for example. So you post that on social media, tweet it out. You can use that in your pitch deck, and one of the slides in your presentation to publishers. It should have every award that you've won, whether you're a finalist or top 10 or 3rd place or grand prize winner. It doesn't matter. You want to, brag about it. Imagine yourself as a WWE, guy with a giant, belt over your shoulder. It might be from 4 years ago, but you still want to brag about that you won this particular event. Or a merit badge if you're into the Boy Scouts or in the military, they have all their little awards and ranks on their uniform. You want to carry that wherever you go. On your Steam page, there's some sections that you can list that in there. You can also have it as a bumper on your trailer, either at the end or in the beginning. You see that in movies. From the Emmy nominated actor or the award-winning director, the producers of whatever. You want to bring that street cred to as many places as possible.
So we've got one coming in the Discord, and Dan, you don't have to type it out because I know it's a long one. Oh, well, you already did. Dude, you were on the ball. So when you're an indie, what's the best way to market your game? If you have to rank it, what's more important? Paid ads on social media, streamers and influencers, general press, or going to festivals?
Wow, that's tough. It depends on your time or money, right? So if you have in the middle of the night, you can be filling out forms for events, for online events. For streamers, you're gonna have to get a hold of them. But I think between those two, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of streamers that cover events. And sometimes the events will give you a media list and say, hey, we're having the following streamers at the show. If you have a build or a trailer by this date, we're going to be submitting it to everyone that's enlisted into our press pool, for example. We've done a few events like that. And, some will try to sell you a list, but a lot of the ones that focus on the indies, they know that you're small. They know you're not, Take-Two, for example, and you don't have a huge marketing budget. So they'll give you a list. and connect you with those. So, but between streamers and events, I think you can get a lot of bang for your buck as far as for the time that you're investing or physical money that you're investing into getting that outreach.
It's one, and I'm not the world's leading expert on paid social media ads, but I mean, I can tell you from the indie game business stuff that we've done, it's hard to get a good result out of a lot of the paid ads on there. You want to get that exposure first, so when people do see something, they kind of like, I've heard of this, I know what it is, and so I'm with you. It's like contests and streamers to get it out there, and then press is tough because it's like I get the games press email every morning, and there's just like a ton of stuff in it, and you can easily get lost in there. And then the ads, and the other thing with the ads, you have to have someone who is pretty well versed in how to set those ads up with the demographics and the targeting and all that other kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're going to drop however much money in ads, and it's just going to go so vague that you're not really going to get a return out of it. So,
and with those ads, you usually want to make multiple versions of the ad and see which get a better response. Certain colors, certain fonts, certain screenshots, just people react to it better. Many moons ago, I worked at a place called Toys R Us, and there would be a toy that was a dog. No one would buy it, and they would change the end cap that it was on, and all of a sudden it became the latest craze toy. And all they did was move it, 12 feet down the aisle to a different spot with a different sign and number. So it's you'd be surprised how you might think you have a great cut of a trailer, but it doesn't get the response from a different trailer that you've created, for example.
Toys R Us is coming back, apparently. I saw that in the news. They're going to start opening new stores again. I was like, oh my God, yes. Anyway, so as you've been doing this, what are some of the initial mistakes that you made along the way that other teams need to be aware of so they don't do the same thing?
So many. Capturing the feedback, getting that information. So there's a few ways you can do it. You can, hopefully you have your phone with you all the time. So every phone, whether it's an iPhone or Android, it has notes. That's usually a default app that's in there. Just type away. Who cares if there's spelling mistakes? Just kind of get general notes of what people are saying or what you're watching them do. If you want to kick that up a notch, you could have a survey built into your game. Now, we had one. Sometimes there's plugins either on the Unity store or on the Epic store that you can buy that have like pre-made forms, and you have to kind of come up with the questions, or maybe it's multiple choice and they're picking, or they're scoring you, 1 out of 5. 1 out of 10 is too big of a range. But you have to keep it limited. So hopefully they'll play your tutorial, they'll play your game for a few minutes. And at the end, when they hit exit, or when it gets to, and if it's a narrative game, it gets to a certain stopping point, ask them. They're already sitting down in front of their computer. Some people might walk away and go, yeah, thanks, whatever. And some people will take the time to type, 6 paragraphs worth of feedback. You don't know. But whatever that program is, make sure you test it beforehand. We went to an event where we didn't realize that every time it would save, it was saving over the previous one.
Oh, shit.
So we lost a whole day's worth of stuff. On one of them, since we learned that lesson, it was saving individual text files, but we rented the computers. So we forgot to copy them to a USB drive. And when we turned the computer back in, it was gone. So we lost a particular day's worth of data from that one. You can even make it where it does that online. So if you have a demo or pre-alpha on Steam, for example, there's certain ones of those plugins where if you have to put in whoever your email provider is and set that up. But once they fill it out, it shoots you an email and gives you all that data. So it doesn't matter. You could be getting this feedback from all around the world. Just make sure you test whatever these functionalities are ahead of time, so you don't lose it.
Ouch! Yes.
Some people will also do video recording, but it's usually so loud at a live event that the audio is not very good. So filling out a survey, talking to them face to face, those are your best options.
Yeah, Google Forms is your friend. That's but yeah, I can't, dude. That's rough to lose entire days worth of feedback like that.
Oh.
And you got to keep in mind when you're getting this feedback, there are a lot of people who they don't want to look you in the face and tell you that your game sucks. Now there are others who do, but you can't always walk away from a conference going, "Oh my God, everything is awesome," because everybody loved our game. It's possible. It's also possible that they're just really nice and they don't want to hurt your feelings, and so they're going to go on and do something else. So, have you experimented at all, or are there ways to do this through a demo on NextFest or somewhere online so you can get more feedback when they're not staring you in the face when you're doing it?
Yeah, I mean, you can turn your demo on and off at any point in time on Steam, for example. So the problem with NextFest is that's a one-use card. Once you use it, you can't come back. As far as the current rules for NextFest, I mean, that could change in the future.
Probably. Yes.
But the way it is now is like you have this one, promote your game event card, and if you do it too early and your game's not polished enough, you might be not getting the best bang out of the event for it. But you can, if you have a small community on Discord or on Twitter or on TikTok, for example, you can type up, hey everybody, next weekend we're gonna turn on the servers or make the demo live. Please go check it out and let us know. You can either give us feedback on Discord or this little survey at the end you can fill out. And that way you can kind of bit by bit as the game gets developed, or maybe you just add one new feature and you're like, hey, we added a grapple hook gun. Tell us what you think. You can kind of do it piece by piece like that way.
So have you got a TikTok for the company in the game?
We do, and the person that was doing our TikTok is no longer with us. It was actually my daughter, and she's working on her own game.
Wow, so, she just said, "F this, Dad, I'm out. I can do it."
No. She let me know, like, but and it's great, because she saw us doing some stuff and doing well, and she offered to help with the social media marketing, and she did a great job, help us build that up, and then she's like, "Well, I want to kind of work on my own game now," and so, we worked around that. So I'm the one that's dropped the ball. I'm not as TikTok centric.
I'm just curious because it's like I have seen, and obviously our friend over at Criticrops is here in chat, and we did a whole talk on TikTok and social media for games, and it's absolutely been surprising to me that TikTok has been that big of a success for games, because I would not have expected that at all. Is there, any, when it comes to promoting where you're going to be and everything about the games, there she is. She's still excited about TikTok. Is there one social media platform that you've noticed is better than others for this?
It's different audiences depending on the platform. I think on Twitter, you're going to find more publishers, other indie studios, or people that work in the gaming industry. Whereas on TikTok, you're going to find more end-use gamers, people that actually going to be buying your game. So there might be some overlap in what, the video or the GIF that you do there, but you might have to phrase it and sell it slightly different ways. I would not use the approach of, okay, we made this one GIF and we're going to blast it everywhere. Different audiences, get triggered different ways. So you're going to want to have to put a little more thought into it. So it just depends. We don't do Facebook, Discord. You're going to have to make sure you're on there and make a conscious effort. And I'll admit we've done that mistake where we'll go. We might have an event and get a bunch of feedback, and we get so buried under making new changes to the game. We haven't posted something in like 2 months, on our Discord. Let's let them know we're still alive and things are still going well. So you kind of have to just follow up on every platform that you're on.
So we had a question, Dan. You can probably back up. Do you recommend indies use demos to market their games? Are the wish lists from free demos, are they bringing low quality wish lists when you're developing a premium game, or are they on par with a normal wish list?
When you talk to a publisher, they don't ask you what quality your wish list is. They just say, what's the number? So it's not a banana versus a green or yellow banana. It's a banana. So it all counts, in my opinion. So, but I think, it's tough to just have a Steam page with just some screenshots and a trailer. Yeah, that can get you started. But the sooner you have something playable, you're getting feedback, you're developing a fan, someone who hopefully, sticks along. Yes, they can unlist and take the wish list off later if they wanted to. But you have that chart, you have some analytics on there that you can follow on Steam, and you can see, how many people a week are you getting, how many people a week you're, earning versus losing. Is it overall at least that line going up? And that should be your biggest, piece of information that you're following. And then you can track different events on their success that way. So if you go do a live event versus an online event, and you're still kind of giving the same sales pitch as, please wish list us, and you see a bigger bump on one over the other, then hey, we might want to do this event again next year, or 3 months from now when it happens again. That kind of stuff. Or maybe it wasn't worth us going to Boston, and spending a bunch of money.
Yeah, so it's all a banana. We need to make sure that we clip that. Because, you're right. It is. And I understand the difference between, what they're saying in terms of a quality wish list and not. And, is that person actually going to buy the game at the end of the day, or they're just wish listing it and it's going to sit on their wish list forever? But you're right.
If the game gets better, you would think that would translate eventually. If someone likes you early on when it's all gray box and placeholder art from the marketplace, and you're showing just a unique mechanic or have a cool story, I think that, they'll stick along for the long haul. It's gonna be worthwhile regardless. At the very least, initially, it shows you have some fans. You're validating, you're not completely crazy. Your idea has some merit.
Yeah, it's like our Discord. It's like, oh my God, people are actually there and they're doing stuff and they're answering each other's questions, and I don't have to. We must be doing something right along the way. All right. So if you've got a question, if you're out there watching it on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or wherever, Twitch, and you've got a question, we've got about 5 more minutes to pop it in chat and we will see it and get to it. So I hear demos on Steam coming from Discord are a terrible way to bring people who are already going to buy your game. And if they're already going to buy it, wait, hold on, you lost me in there somewhere. People who already were going to buy the game were already going to buy it. So give them a chance to see if there's more to this, isn't it, Dan? Are you seeing a good conversion rate from demos? Let's just start it that way.
We definitely see a bigger bump on when we have a demo, especially when we have a demo at an event. So parsing it out, we don't do events without bringing a demo. So I guess that could potentially skew the numbers to a certain degree. We've done some live online events where they just didn't have they weren't a Steam partner. So you're going to have to be the one that gets the word out. Hey, everybody, while we're at this event online, we're going to have a demo available. So that might limit, the success there. But
the flip side of it is, if it's not like one of the Steam partner festivals or whatever, you feasibly are competing against less people because it's just you piping stuff directly to your page versus it getting piped to the overall festival page and hoping you've got a good ranking in there.
Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind is people can't rate demos. So there's no disadvantage from you putting out a demo. They might troll you online, and or in the comments section on the YouTube trailer, or I'll go on your Discord and oh, this was crappy. But as far as the rankings within Steam, they can't rate the demo. You can only rate a game. So at the very least, get some feedback, see what people think about what you've put out in this particular version or this new feature.
All right. So Joker's got a good question. For games in early access with a demo, how effective do you think sending out keys to hardware suppliers like SteelSeries, Alienware, Lenovo, and iGames are? So the next part is, do they count as valid wishlisted players? And, Joker, like we said, a wish list is a wish list. It doesn't matter if it's valid or not. The publishers just want to know the number. But have you sent demos to hardware manufacturers?
I have not. When I worked at an indie studio and indie publisher, we did do some partnerships and pack-in deals with certain, video card companies or sound card companies and stuff like that. So there's definitely a market there for that. With being an indie, I think it's tough. Unless you have a large fan base, they're probably not going to be super interested necessarily in working with you. You kind of have to have the numbers before you can get that attention. Fortnite had to be big before they could go to Marvel and start getting the Marvel deal. They didn't just knock on Marvel's door day one. They actually had to kind of build that fan base first. So, but if you can get it, go for it. Any help you can get, is good. You can reach out to Logitech or whoever and get them to offer you something as a freebie to give away, or they help co-promote you and retweet you out, then I think that's worthwhile attention.
The other thing to keep in mind is a lot of these hardware manufacturers are, they all have these divisions that are going in and saying, okay, we need to promote this and bring this game in, and we're going to highlight it, and there's newsletters and things like that. But one, you've got to find those divisions. They're not always easy to come across. And two, you got to remember their main priority is showcasing games and things that highlight their hardware. And so a lot of times with indie games, because you're not necessarily pushing the front end of the Unreal 5 engine and whatever technical doodad is the keyword right now, a lot of times they're not going to be as open as it is like with the latest AAA game out there. But that's not to say you shouldn't try. I mean, because if you've already gone through all these other festivals and you've got your press kit and all this other stuff later, send it to them. Worst they're going to say is no. So it's worth a shot. Yep.
Sure.
All right. I think, Dan, we got anybody else? Is any other questions coming in? If not, yes. Awesome, Lee. Congratulations. Appreciate you coming on here and definitely some good advice in there.
Amazing advice. And my phone rings, right? It's a perfect time. Like always.
I wanted to thank you guys. I've been a big fan of the show. Thank you for having me on. For many years, as I was transitioning and not working in gaming, I would listen to you, at whatever job I was at, if I was at a lunch break or while mowing the lawn, just kind of catching up on all the new content and advice of the great people you have on here. So I do recommend everyone to kind of follow and go back to everything for the last 4 years. There's a lot of great advice on both the YouTube channel and on the Discord page.
Yes, dive into that gigantic pool of stuff that we have. Some of it set up in playlists for you, but we've got to actually update that because I don't think it's been updated in like 6 months. So,
I update every.
Do you?
Everything.
See, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So you can literally go to our YouTube page.
Everything is placed. I bet like the last 2 or 3. No, everything is except for the last video is not in playlisted, but everything is.
And there's fresh content. There's fresh advice and content coming up next week with the show.
Yes. I'm ready for that next week.
10th conference.
Mm-hmm. So, 10th conference. That's crazy. So thank you so much, Lee, for hanging out with us today and giving us all these tips. Thanks everybody in the Discord for their questions. Thanks everyone watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. We appreciate you guys. Thank you very much, Tripwire Presents, for sponsoring us. That's amazing. Make sure to join if you're not in our Discord. Join our Discord at discord.gg/indiegamebusiness. Do you ever have these UGC platform creators? User-generated content platform creators? There's a question. I don't know what that means.
I'm not 100% familiar either. But hit us up and ask us on the Discord. If there's
go in the Discord and ask.
Yes.
Is that what the UGC means? User-generated content, correct? Yep. Yes, sir.
So make sure you go grab a pass for the 21st, 22nd next week when we're going to be doing 2 solid days of conferences. No, you don't have to have a pass to watch it. But if you do, we send you all the decks and you get all the information, and it's super, super easy. And if you have a demo you want to pitch, then the meet to match passes are $50. Or if you can't swing $50 and you have a demo and you need to pitch to publishers, absolutely DM me, reach out. I will hook you up with a pass because you are the reason we do this. We want to make sure that everybody has a good chance to pitch to publishers, to get feedback, to find and move their game along. But yeah, that's it.
I'm excited. So thank you all for hanging out. Have a great weekend.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.